Well, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been in Israel meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other ministers, more or less urging them to go easier on Gaza. Blinken claims that the civilian death toll is too high and that Israel must stop taking steps that undercut Palestinians' ability to govern themselves effectively, quote unquote. But of course, Gaza is governed by Hamas, a terrorist organisation. So when he talks about allowing them to govern effectively, what is he talking about? A two-state solution, as the US wants, would only work without Hamas. And the only way to get rid of Hamas is to wipe them off the face of the planet. Joining me now from Israel is author Douglas Murray. Douglas, a pleasure as always. What is Blinken actually trying to achieve here?
Good to be with you. It's a bit of a mystery in some ways, because the claim that he's making that there simply needs to be greater trust on both sides, as it were, in order to push for a two-state solution, and that it's within Israel's grasp to hand the Palestinian peoples in the West Bank and Gaza a sort of reputable social democratic government structure that allows them to thrive economically and socially, is a complete fantasy. Everybody can see it's a fantasy, except it's certain people in the international arena who cling on to this very, very outdated model for dear life. There are very few people in Israel across the right or the left of politics who think that a two-state solution is remotely plausible at the moment. I don't think it's remotely plausible at the moment. I don't know if it ever will be, but it looks incredibly unlikely at the moment because, as you mentioned in your introduction, Hamas, well, Gaza became a kind of state. Every Jew was forcibly withdrawn from the Gaza. The authorities in Gaza were given everything of the structure that was there, including the economic structure. And for the next 18 years, Hamas were voted in, killed their Palestinian opponents, enriched themselves massively, bought Ferraris and luxury apartments for themselves and their children, kept the people in some relative poverty because they stole all the aid money and other things that went in and built a tunnel network instead of buildings. But, you know, all of that happened in what could have been a Gazan Palestinian state. And then after barrage of rockets over many years, finally we had the events of October the 7th last year and 3 months ago now. And that's what the Israelis got from a Palestinian state in Gaza. And why people like Blinken keep committing to the idea that Gaza could be socially democratically ruled at some point in the near future, if only the Israelis agreed to it, or that there's any similar alternative in the West Bank, I think is for the fairies. The West Bank, if it had an election tomorrow, would elect Hamas. It's the only good reason why Mahmoud Abbas is now into something like the 17th year of his 4-year term as head of the Palestinian Authority. Because if he was to have fresh elections, he'd be booted out, would probably be hanged from a lamppost by Hamas like his colleagues in Gaza. And that would be that. So it's simply a dead song, a dead myth, a dead piece of rhetoric that Blinken and others are now saying.